So anyway, so welcome to this webinar on custom walkthrough of the generated websites from the tool, and then also talking a little bit about customization opportunities. I'm going to start by giving a little bit of history of sort of how this came to be, and then we'll actually generate a couple of websites and then go through the code in a text editor. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so the origin of this is that originally, really the tool was focused on creating PDF files, but I wanted to have the ability to have people be able to do things with the assets that are created by the tool. So for example, besides just giving you, let's say, PDFs, it's always had the ability, for example, in the player, to do things like export the audio as WAV file or MP3, but also the images as JPEG files or PNG files, SVG files, that sort of thing. So you're able to actually kind of get, the idea was I wanted to be able to get the products that the tool creates out into a form where anybody could do whatever they want with them. So for example, if they just wanted to put the JPEGs up on a website, it had the ability to do that. And as a matter of fact, it had the ability to do that for all of the tunes in the Tunebook in these export all tunes dialog here under more tools, where it could take all of the files out, walk through each of the tunes and put them out as a JPEG, or put them out as, take the audio out and all that. So I didn't want people to be kind of locked into just using the tool to produce things that I could create, like the JPEGs, I'm sorry, like the PDF files. But one of the things I added early on were these developer share URL batch export tools. And the idea was that one of the key technologies in the tool are the share links, the ability to share tunes. So for example, I'm going to take this down just to this one tune here. Let me just grab a snapshot. So I'll just have one tune. I'll just have the coolies, let's say, in here. So we've got this one tune, and then if you look in the sharing dialog, if you click sharing, there's this link here, and that link is a link back to the tool, and the parameters that are in this link actually encode the ABC that's in the editor. So this is a lossless LZW algorithm compressed version of the actual text that's in the editor for the tune, and then the rest of it is just information about, okay, we're in the notation display, and here's some information about the staff spacing, and here's a name for the file. And this technology is the basis of everything that goes on as far as clicking on tunes and PDF files. You can email these, you can stick these in a post on Facebook, whatever. And when you actually open one of these, so for example, if I click share, test share URL, you'll see we get the tune, comes up right away. And then there are various additional parameters that can be added, like add autoplay, and you'll see it just sticks at play equals 1 on the end of the URL. When I test that one, it'll open automatically in the player. If I get rid of that and click on add open in editor, it just says add editor equals 1. We test that, you'll see now we get the tune, but we're actually in the editor. So the share technology, the share URL technology, is the heart of pretty much all of these sharing scenarios, and very specifically, originally, the ability to play the tunes from clicking on a PDF file. What the PDF builder does is it finds the actual location on the pages of each of the tunes, and it creates a share link like this, and it attaches that share link to the title of each tune as a hyperlink in the PDF file, and that's how the tunes get to play. So, well, I thought, well, other people might want to be able to use these share links, but you don't want to have to go out and, let's say I had 3 tunes here. Let me just go ahead and I'll get back my 3 tunes. So I've got 3 tunes here. I could go into that tune. Well, if I hit click sharing now, I'm going to get a share link for all 3 tunes. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice, like if I open this share link, it's actually going to open all 3 tunes. I can put about 20 tunes in a share link. They're limited to about, I think 4K is the maximum, not by what web can support, but what my hosting service will support as a link. And yeah, 20 tunes is pretty cool to get into a share link. You can get, a whole set of tunes easily. But I thought, it would be really nice if I could imagine some scenarios where someone wants to get all of the URLs, all the share URLs for their tunes in some kind of a data structure that they can then use in some other application. And that's why I added these 2 functions here under export all tunes. Export all share URLs as JSON and export all share URLs as CSV. And if I click on this, it's going to ask me for a name. I'll just take the default name. And I'm going to open that file up and I'll show you what that looks like. And let me actually save it as JS. I'm going to rename it here so that it'll format a little better. Good. Okay. Now, if we this is a JSON data structure that it creates, and you can see it just has, it's just an array of objects, and the object has the name of the tune, and then it has the URL, and it just has that for every single one of the tunes. And then someone could then use this data structure to, for example, create a list of tunes that are in the data structure, and then when you click on those names of tunes, open the appropriate link. And so I did this a long time ago, months ago, maybe almost a year ago. And what I found was that no one was using it, which is fine.
Well, to interrupt, I mean, I have been watching with interest, and yeah, I did my own real proper recordings of all the tunes in my Tunebook, right. and so I've got an HTML page that with those all on. I did wonder about grabbing this and putting links in for each tune, so that we could have the strict timing computer playing it as opposed to me playing it. But I thought I would wait. Your tool seemed to be evolving sufficiently fast, and I wasn't in a hurry, so I thought I would wait and see what came later.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I try to do some things in the playback to make it less mechanical. I do have things like the ability to put in swing. And some of the ornamentation timing and stuff is better than most of the ABC players.
It is. Yeah, it is. I do agree.
So anyway, so I built this functionality to do this JSON export of all the tunes, and I found that it wasn't really getting much traction. So I thought, well, let me see if I can build an example of something that would use it. And I realized that, I could actually build, what I did is I built a test website using that data structure manually. I just did one by hand. I said, I wanted to put an example. It said, here's an example of a website that uses the JSON data of the tunes. And I think within a day of doing that, I realized, wait a minute, the tool could actually generate the code for me. In other words, once I wrote it, once I did the website once and I knew what I wanted in it, then I could actually write a code generator. And that's kind of the origin of the website generator, was that I wanted to I wanted to do an example of using the JSON data structure. And then that evolved into me realizing that I could create a tool I could create a function in the tool where people could put in the sorts of the title, the subtitle, maybe some footers, control some colors, decide if they want the tunes to play. Do they want to open in the player? Do they want to have it open in the editor? Whatever they just they wanted to do, and then have the tool actually write all of the website. Write the header, write the CSS, write the HTML, write the JavaScript. and you're done. And you know, and then you can just use it like right out of the box. If you want to customize it, that's perfectly fine. But I wanted something that people who have no ability, not ability, but no experience in coding, that's the wrong word to use, certainly have ability, but they have no experience in doing web programming, to be able to create a very powerful website without having to do any coding at all. And I think I've accomplished that with this tool. So anyway, so here I've got these 3 tunes, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and oh, and before I do it, let me just mention that a lot of these tune books, a lot of these websites are available on my Tunebook website. So if you go to the michaeleskin.com/tunebooks.html, you can click on this interactive Tunebook websites, and there's just a whole bunch of them here in various genres. There's the traditional Irish tunes, which include Paul's Tunebook here. So here's an example of a Tunebook, and this is a very typical example of the sort of thing that can be created. The only customization I did on this was to change the color of this question mark. The rest of it was all generated by the tool itself.
Though I did notice that the transcription line, which came from the Z field in my thing, you'd split it across 2 lines. Had you done that? Is that part of a generic facility, or had you
yes.
edited it into 2 Zs?
Yeah, I'll actually show you that at the end of the seminar. There is a feature. So one of the problems with ABC.js is that it doesn't know how to split long lines of text. And so without it, this would have flown off of the side and would have lost it. Yeah. And so I have a feature in the tool that can split text and taglines into multiple tags for this kind of purpose. And I think that was the other thing I did with this, just to get it to format and look prettier. So anyway, so this, like I said, this is an example of a generated website. The only customization I did was to change the color of that question mark. And there's just a whole bunch up here and they all have a very similar kind of structure, where they have these, for the Irish ones, they'll have a list of tunes. And then they'll have by default, they'll have a drop down with instruments with different tablature options that additionally also, when you choose those options, will play with the instrument that's listed. So when we have the tenor banjo in play, we get tenor banjo. And this is all actually automatically generated for you by the tool. The other style of website that's also common is where you don't want the tune selector. So for example, for let's say classical music, so here's some classical examples where I've done essentially like a master score. You know, it has all of the parts, and then I'll just have the individual parts for each of the instruments, and then what I call, or generically called, music -1, where it has the entire score, but one of the instruments is muted. And so this is a style where there's just a single drop down. There's no instrument selector here, and the tool is capable of doing that. So these are the 2 basic, what I would call fully featured website examples that are commonly done. The last style is what I call the simple website examples. We won't go too much through that. Essentially what these are just a list of tunes with a title, and none of the player isn't embedded inside the page like it is for the fully featured one. And there are cases where I know, maybe Kathleen, may have been you, somebody was trying to use this using a different website product, like they were trying to embed this website in one of my Tunebook websites inside another website builder, and sort of the cascade of things inside of things was problematic. So sometimes just having a very simple list like this, where you just click on the tune and it opens in a new tab, is appropriate. So that's also an option. Not going to cover too much of that. That's a very simple thing in comparison. But I'm going to focus more on the full-featured website option. So I'm going to be using just this set of 3 tunes, Cooley's, Cache, and Alexander's. Maybe we'll try a bigger one. The beauty of this is that and actually I'll talk about dealing with at the very end, I'll talk about dealing with very large websites. Because the beauty of the websites, as I mentioned, they're based on just generating these share links. And generating the share links does not depend on having the notation present. And so there are cases where if you had a Tunebook with 1,000 tunes and you tried to use my tool to do that, you'd have to wait for those 1,000 tunes to draw before you could even click the button that said export website, because the first time you open a Tunebook, it draws all the tunes once. And then after that, when you edit tunes, it only redraws the tune you're working on. But if you want to actually generate a website for a very, very large Tunebook, it turns out you don't actually have to get them drawing at all. And there's a way to turn off the drawing so that you can just load the ABC and tell it to generate the website. And I'll show you that at the end. So that can be very handy if you're, because some of these Tunebooks I've done are over 1,000 tunes, and and they take almost exactly as long to create as one with 3 tunes when you don't have to draw anything. So to get to the website builder, you just click on Export Website, and there's 2 options: Export Basic Tune List Website. That was the one I showed you that was just the linear list, but we're going to use this one called Export Full Featured Tunebook Website. And to generate the website, you just sort of have to fill out this form here for all the things you want. And if something's empty, it won't include it in the website. So you have a title, so I'll just say Zoom Demo. Here's the subtitle, example of a Tunebook website. There's the footer at the bottom, so just a normal footer. If you put a link like this, a hyperlink, in any of these fields, the website builder will detect that it actually is a hyperlink, and it will treat it as such so that you can click on it in the website. The website background, now let me just bring up one of these things here so I can show you kind of what corresponds to what. I'll bring up Paul's site again. Oops. So yeah, so we have okay, actually let me bring up one that has a header and has the 2. There we go. So here we have the title is this is the subtitle, this is footer 1, this is footer 2 with this one has a hyperlink in it. Those correspond to, here's title, subtitle, footer 1 and footer 2. And then you can specify your background. That would be for these colors here, above and below. And on Paul's, you can see they're a little different. And then you can put a solid color in. You can just say, green or blue or red or an HTML, value, or you can put in gradients. And so, for example, in this case, I'll actually do, let's say, red to white and back to red for this demo. What color do you want the text to be? What color do you want hyperlinks to be? And then you say, well, do I want that drop down? In other words, do I just want a list of tunes? That's what you'll get by default. But do I want to have the instrument drop down to the right of the tune? So you click that if you want. Do you want the little question mark in the corner here? This here. Do you want one of those? And if you do, if they click on it, where do you want the tool to send them to? So I say, yes, I do want a help icon, and I'm going to send them to my common questions page for the Tunebooks. And do I want a full screen button at the top right corner? That's this button here. And that's a button, if you click that button, it'll take the current tune and it'll open it in a new tab. And that's just, particularly on some people with smaller screens, that can be very useful. It kind of takes away all the, all the browser Chrome above. Let me get rid of, just to make things bigger here, I'll get rid of that. Okay. Oh, I did not mean to do that. How do I get out of this? I see. View, toolbars, there we go. Better. Good. Okay. So that gives you your little icon in the corner. This gives you the full screen button. This gives you the full screen button at the top right. Do you want the tunes to open in the player? By default, if that's unchecked, what you'll just get is, you'll get the equivalent of this. I'll show you. You'll get the equivalent of, if you don't tell it to open in the player, you'll just get essentially a full screen view of the tune, but the user would have to click the play button in order to play it. Again, the idea being, to have lots of flexibility for what people want. And some of these things are turned on by default, like open in player. So if you want to pick an instrument for the tunes to play, for example, I have a Tunebook site, which is a bunch of O'Carillon tunes. So for example, on this O'Carillon set here, these tunes by default, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong book. Let's go back to the tune books here. O'Carillons. So yeah, in the traditional Irish tunes in the O'Carillon collection, this one, there we go. These tunes by default play with harp sound. So you can pick what the default instrument is. Now, most commonly it's going to be a piano, but if you choose an instrument besides the piano, then that will actually show up in these first two items here. So it'll say piano dash notation, harp dash notation, or whatever. So you can pick the default. Instrument that you want to have play, and also the same thing for the bass and the chords on all the tunes. And this way, this is much like when you set up a PDF tunebook and you set up the play link instruments. You can select your sound font and the instruments that get injected. And these actually get injected into the tops of each of the tunes. So if we were to take a look at that, let's take a look. Let me go, if I bring this one again, if I close this and I actually look at the ABC, you'll see at the very top of the tune here, the website creator has injected the MIDI information for harp, and in this case it's actually muting. There's no backup for this, so it's actually told it to mute the bass and chords. But if we, for example, were to look at the San Diego Cultist tune book and take a look at one of the tunes, you can see that here we have piano for the melody, bass, and chords, and this sets the bass and chord volume for the backup. So this is all done by the website generator. The key being that you don't have to stick these in yourself to each tune if you want it to play. You can just select the instrument in the website generator, and if we actually change to a different instrument here, the website itself, if we bring this one down and open it, you'll see the website itself, these will now have changed. You'll see that it's actually changed the program number. And this is all handled by the website code itself. You don't have to do anything except just tell it initially what your original instrument is that you want. Luckily, I know this is actually Alex. Welcome, Alex. You just missed. We had a Zoom bomber, a little bit of pornography to brighten our morning. But,
and I missed it. Oh shoot, that's a shame.
And they were jumping around too. It was very hard. I had to chase them down in the thumbnails in order to get rid of them. Anyway, I'm just kind of going through. So you can just pick the instrument that you want to be kind of the default instrument when you do this here. And then after that, the website code itself, and I'll show you where it does that actually, takes care of switching the instruments for you when you change between the different tablatures, so that when you pick mandolin tablature, you get a mandolin sound. When you pick guitar tablature, you get guitar sound, concertina, accordion, that sort of thing. It takes care of all of that for you. And it puts all of them in by default. And when I actually get into the code, I can show you how to remove some of those if you don't want them. but I figure it's easier to put them, it's way easier to take them out than to try to figure out how to put them in yourself, particularly if you're fairly new to doing web coding. So anyway, we set up all our parameters that we want here. So we want it to say Zoom demo, example Tunebook website. Here's a footer. Here's a footer with a link. It's going to be, let's see, I'm going to say red to white to red for the background. I happen to be picking a linear gradient here. Again, I could just say, matter of fact, I'll do that. I'll just say, we'll just make the background green. Let's say light green. And I'll just say, okay. Ask me for a name, and it's done. Now, when I open that, here's my website. It's got a light green background. It's got a question mark in the corner. Takes me to the website help. Here's the selectors for the tunes. Pick a tune, pick an instrument, play it. Okay, so, and then these arrows just walk through the tunes. You can go back and forth between them. Very simple. If I want to see this tune full screen, I just click the full screen button, play it. And because the player itself has a lot of functionality, right from here, for example, if I wanted to generate a PDF of this, I could just say, click on that, say export tune as PDF. You know, give it some parameters here. We'll just say 1 tune per page. You know, and we get the PDF of that 1 tune. So, you know, besides just using the websites for practicing and that sort of thing, people can do a lot of stuff directly from it, or you could do that right from here. Just click export as PDF. The other beauty of the websites is because it's the player, you have access to the tune trainer. So you can click on Start Tune Trainer. And this is the feature in the tool where it plays the tunes slowly, gives you a little time if you want to pick up your mandolin, and then it'll play it at a starting speed. Go through the whole tune once, increase it by 10%, go back around. You have all these parameters for setting the training session. So like how fast you start, how fast you want to get to, how many times you want it to go through each time before it increments and all that. But all that can be done right from, you know, just after you pick a tune. You're in the player, you can use all the player features. You can change the sort of the width of this on the screen by using the little arrows that are in the player here, because people have different size screens, and all that. So, you know, all of that was done. We didn't do any coding. Here's the footer with the link down here. It takes me to the link that I specified, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the basic. You know, that's what you get out of the box. You know, without really doing anything. Now, if we wanted to use that gradient instead, let's go back to here. And the first thing you'll notice is that it maintained all of the parameters from the last time that you used the product. And I think this is important because if you're working on a tune book and you know, let's say you're constantly updating the same tune book, you don't want to have to keep going back every single time and re-entering all this stuff. So for example, once I say, okay, you know, even if I reload the tool, I'm going to like reload the tool from scratch. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I grabbed a snapshot of those tunes, so we'll just get those back. And now if I go into export website, you'll see it has all the same values. So it's pretty nice about keeping things the way they were for you. And again, because probably you're going to be, you know, like I'm constantly updating the local cultist chapter website, and so most of the time this is just set to the settings that I use for that. If I wanted a different gradient, and now I'm going to do the same website now with that red, white, red gradient, and I'll make the text color white instead, and the hyperlink color white, and I'll export it. We'll open that one. You'll see we get this red. Oh, okay, so that I probably should have stuck with black. So I'll say, well, okay, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to just change that to black. And one could modify, and I'll show you, one could modify the code directly, or you can just re-export it. There we go, that's better. So, so it's, like I say, it's very kind about maintaining the parameters that you used previously. The only other feature I didn't talk about here yet is this disable access to editor. And this is the case where, okay, so if I open that website, I'll open that website again. And now when I'm in the player, if someone wanted to actually edit this ABC, it's really easy to do because this is behaving exactly the same way as if you were to use the tool. The equivalent of what you're seeing here is as though you were using the tool and you were in, let me just bring this down to like one tune, just to kind of show you the, if you're already familiar with using the tool and you were in the player, sorry, if you were in full screen and then you had started the player, this is exactly what the website is presenting. And so, except it's going directly to this kind of configuration. So a user can close, if they were just using the tool, they could close the player and then they could close this full screen view and they would be in the editor, which means that someone using your Tunebook could just close the tune and then close this view, and now they're in the editor. Now, maybe for some reason, maybe you don't want people to make, you don't want it to be easy for people to mess with your ABC, or for some reason you just want to hide it. For example, I have some really complicated examples of let's see if I can find an example here. Yeah, like my ultimate demos one. Like these are these massive, orchestral scores. And first off, it wouldn't be a whole lot of fun to see the ABC for this. So you'll notice that that arrow is not here. That the one that allows you to get into the editor is actually not present. And that is set by the, this button here, this checkbox here, this disable access to editor. So if we check that and then generate the website, the only difference will be that you'll see that when we pick a tune, there's no arrow over here. The zoom arrow to get into the editor is just simply not presented. Now, it's not 100% secure. One could take a look at the URL, figure out how I'm actually suppressing that button, but it's meant to be sort of a casual way to just keep people from, if you just want to kind of hide the, part of this is to hide the technology entirely from the user. They don't have to know this is ABC behind the scenes. They just want to play the music, right? So, giving them a way to get into the editor might, if you don't want that, this is a way to prevent them from doing that. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of the generator. Before I go into actually looking at some of the code that we generated, are there any questions I can answer? Okay, well, hearing none, let's go ahead and I'm going to delete the websites we just created, and I'm going to create just one fresh, so we're all on the same page, and make sure we're all, that we start from a known good state. I'm going to just delete all the files we just created, and we'll go ahead and export these 3 tunes, and let's see, we'll have the access to the editor on. And I'm going to do the simple case. I'm not going to have an instrument selector drop down. So we're just going to present the tunes in the player, and they're going to play, they're just going to play with this grand piano sound. This is a very simple case as a starting point. So we'll go ahead and save it, and we'll just call this one simple, or we'll say no tabs. Okay. And this site it just has the tune list. That's it. And they play with the default sound that we've created, that we picked in the dialog, actually. Okay. So let me go ahead and open up that HTML in my text editor, and I'll zoom it up so it's easier to read. Okay. Okay, so it's everything for that website is contained in this one file. So it just has kind of the normal HTML header stuff with a link to an image. The title, this title is taken from, let me bring up the website generator again. So this website title here, Zoom demo, ends up getting populated into the HTML title. So that's what shows up in the bar at the top of your browser inside the tab bar. And then here's all of the CSS. This is the styling. These are the colors and font sizes. So if you're not familiar, if you're not familiar with how websites are built, they have an HTML file, and inside that file there are three elements generally. There is the actual what's called the markup, the HTML, and that's like the description of here's a title, here's a subtitle, here's paragraphs, and that sort of thing. But it doesn't say how they should look. It just says here's an element, here is a header, and here's a footer or whatever. But it doesn't say anything about should it be Helvetica or red or 15 point or whatever. That's done using what's called CSS, cascading style sheets. And these are, the top of the file is a what's called a style section that has these CSS descriptors that describe how to actually render the text. So I'm going to skip past all of the CSS and just show you the HTML first. So this is the HTML for the website. This is the whole website right here. You can see that there's not much to it. This is the corner button. A hyperlink with the question mark, and you can see here is the link that I typed in to go to when you click the question mark. Here's that full screen button. Here's the title that I entered, the subtitle I entered. These previous and next tune buttons get added for you if there's more than one tune. Then there's the selector, the tune selector, and this actually, as we'll see in a minute, gets automatically populated for you by the code, which will be down below that we'll look at. And then below that is this iframe, and an iframe is a way on a web page where you can essentially where you can embed one web page in another web page. And so these websites are actually, the one HTML file is the website, but inside that, below the title and above the footer, it's actually sticking an instance of my ABC Transcription Tools running inside that iframe, and using the share links. And then here's the footer, the first footer and the second footer. And you can see this has, because I had put in a link in the when I asked for what I wanted the second footer to be, this one here, sorry, right here, that's what is actually in that second footer. And so the tool knows, the website itself will know to render that as a hyperlink. Now, even though this says what should be in those areas, it doesn't say how it should draw them. So for example, like the title here is this right here, Zoom demo. It's an H1 tag with ID of title. And if we look in the styling here, you can see that it says, this should be a font size 24, and here's the margins and all that. This just describes its layout, but the color is black. If I wanted the color to be, for example, yellow, I could just change that. And now if I reload that website, that title will be, I can't really see it, but you can see the title has changed to yellow. So you can change some of the element colors. Let's change it back to black now. We'll change it back to black, and we can make it a different size. For example, we could make it 28 font instead of 24, and then reload it, and it would be taller, that sort of thing. So you can change the the font, the kind of the appearance of these tags. I've picked what I think are relatively good defaults. I was trying to keep the headers and the footers from being too big because I wanted to have as much room for the music as I could. So everything tries to be pretty, but also fairly compressed. And again, so all of the aspects of this here, like what color should all of the elements be. Now, here's that background for the top and bottom. So you can hear it says, you know, red to white to red. If I were to change the, if I were to change this from blue to, you know, to white to green and regenerate it, and we were to look at that code, you'd see that in that area here, we get that gradient. So so there's a direct correspondence essentially between everything that's in the dialogue here and what's in the styling. So let's go back and take a look at the code some more. Okay, so we have the styling at the top, very easy to modify. You know, so if you just want to do simple, if you just want to do like simple, you know, color changes, like let's say the full screen button right now, this full screen button is this blue color. Like this full screen button is blue. If you wanted it to be red, you could just change this to, that's the RGB for red, save it. Fades in with the red. That was probably not a good choice. Let's pick a different color. How about yellow? So RG, that would be yellow. Save that. Reload this, should turn yellow. Yeah. And you can play with the text colors now. The idea being that all of the colors that are used for the presentation are all pretty much available here. So at the level of just, you know, changing colors or spacing or fonts and all that, you can do that, all of that, just in the style section of the website. So we have the style section, and then we have this is the markup. So these are all the elements that are actually on the page that we walk through. And then we now get into the code that runs the website. So here's that same data structure that I showed you earlier. This is exactly the same. This is exactly the same as, and it's actually created using the same function in the tool as if I had gone to More Tools, Export All Tunes, Export All Share URLs as JSON, and I'll just open that one again and show you. You know, this is exactly, this stuff here is exactly what is being shoved into the website right here. So it generates all the share links for each of the tunes. And this is an array. And some of the people weren't here when I did this before. I'm going to save this as JavaScript so I can format it a little bit prettier, just to show you what that looks like again. And again, this is an array of elements that have, each one of them is in brackets, and then there's the name of the property. So we have the name, and then the tune name, and then the URL, and then this is just literally the share link that would be created as if you had clicked the share button in the tool. So it gathers up all of the share links for all of the tunes, and it sticks it into this data structure. And if you look at, for example, like Paul's site, if I go into, you can see this is Paul's website. And this is, let me bring it up again in the, here. So, you know, even though it's got, what, 699 tunes, something like that, right? It's structurally, it's the same. It's got the header, it's got the style section, very small. The actual website code is quite small, except this one has a selector, and we'll go through that in a minute. But you can see it has this massive data structure. These are all the tunes. These are the share links for all of the tunes in Paul's book. But pretty much the only difference between this and between websites is going to just be how big this structure is. So it could be 3 tunes, could be 1,000 tunes. Doesn't care. Works exactly the same way. So here are the 3 tunes. And then below that is the code that actually runs the website. So, so there's a couple of things that the the tool does for you. So, for example, when you pick a tune in the list. So, for example, I've got this Archibald MacDonald of Keppoch on tenor banjo. If I go ahead and close this website, and then I sometime later, go back to Paul's website, you see it comes back to exactly the same spot it was at before. And so there is code in the website generator that keeps track of the current tune and the current tablature if it's in use, and it restores that when it comes back. So if you see, I'm not going to go too much through that mechanism today, but you'll see, for example, anytime you see the use of Windows local storage, it's just using it to save and restore preferences. And it does this by generating essentially a random value name that it uses for saving that preference so that 2 different websites don't collide in terms of the settings. But I did want to show basically what happens here. When the, let's see here, hold on a second here. Okay, so when the website first is loaded by your browser, it fires off this, what's called a DOM content loaded event. And this essentially tells this code that that the website is fully loaded now, and anything you need to do when the website first runs, do now. And so in this case, because there was a full screen button, it'll actually say, okay, when someone clicks the full screen button, I want you to open. It keeps track of the last tune that you use. So anytime you click on a tune, the share link for that tune ends up getting stored in this thing called last URL. That's right here. And it just says, if you click the full screen button, just open that URL in a new page. And then it has to build that list of all the tunes. So if we look in the markup here, you can see there's a tune selector, but it doesn't have all of the tunes listed here. It just has kind of a placeholder for the first one, this thing at the very top that says, click to select a tune. So the first thing it does is it looks to see it. This tunes is the name of this data structure, just called tunes. And tunes.length says how many elements are there in that list. And it says, oh, okay, well, if there's more than one tune in that list, then we're going to need to actually build a drop-down list. If there's only one tune in the list, we don't need a drop-down list, so it'll actually get rid of the drop-down list. But if there is more than one tune in the list, what it'll do is it'll walk through that list, and it'll create more of these option tags, which are like these, to append more items to the list. So it'll just walk through each tune. It creates a new option, sets the value of the tune to the URL that it gets out of the data structure here, gives it the name to put in the display, and just adds it to the list. Because if we were to look at the source code for the Tunebook, for the website that we just generated, let's look at this one. If we actually look at the page source, you'll see it's kind of hard to see because it's, oh no, that's the actual page source loaded from the thing. Sorry, it'd be difficult to look at it. I'd have to look at it in the debugger actually to show you what happens after it's finished generating. But the idea is that it builds that list. So whether it's 3 tunes or 700 tunes, every one of those is going to get an item in the list, and they're going to be in the same order that are in this data structure. So that means, for example, if you want them in alphabetical order, then you need to sort your Tunebook by alphabetical order, which is very easy to do in the tool before you generate the website. So, so for example, if I was in here, and let me just open up some random tunes. We'll just open up a bunch of, let's just say, I don't know, are these in alphabetical order? These are already in alphabetical. Let me find a set that isn't in alphabetical order. Oh, I know, the sleeve notes sets aren't in alphabetical order. Okay, so like here's a bunch of sleeve note tunes, and they aren't in alphabetical order. But if I wanted them to be in alphabetical order in the exported Tunebook, the exported website, then I would want to sort these by name, and the way you do that is go to More Tools, Sort by Tag, Sort by Name, and now the tunes are in alphabetical order. And if I were to generate this website, they are now in alphabetical order in the dropdown. So that's just something to be aware of, is that whatever order the tunes are in the editor is going to be the order that they show up on your website. Again, by default, you know, once you get into customization, then anything's possible. But by default, whatever order they're in the Tunebook, they're going to be the same order in the dropdown on the website. So it builds that list, walks through this data structure, builds that list. And again, all of this code, all of this JavaScript code, this is all part of the actual, I mean, this is generated by, how can I describe it? The website generator code in my tool generates this website, generates all this code. It actually puts these lines of text into the file for you. All of this is done automatically. Okay, so then what happens is when you pick a different item from the list, so when we're in these drop downs, and we pick an item from the list, a different event gets triggered, which is an on-change event for this dropdown. So when I click, let's say the Blackwater, this dropdown item, which we saw in the HTML, gets sent an event, which is an on-change. And so here's the on-change handler for the tune selector. Again, the tune selector is the dropdown. And what it does is it gets the URL from the, again, because we set up as the value for each item, the URL for the tune, it gets the URL from the selector, and it saves it off as the last URL. It actually then saves the fact that that was your last, it changed, I'm sorry about this, it saves which item in the list you picked in the local storage, so that next time you open the tool, it'll go there. And okay, sorry here. So we get the change, right? One moment here, sorry. Oh, right, tune frame first. Okay, so the tune frame is the application frame. It is the placeholder. This right here. This is the placeholder in which it's going to actually run the ABC Tools Transcription Tools application. So again, like here is, you know, here's the URL for Coolies right here. And if we were to open that, you know, if I were to just copy that and open that in my browser in a new tab, I would get Coolies, right? So what this code does right here on change is it just sets the source of that frame. In other words, this empty space, this area here, everything below the header and above the footer is the iframe that can hold any application. And I simply set the source for that frame to be the share link for the tune. And as a result, the ABC Transcription Tools gets loaded into that frame, and it sees the share link exactly as though you were clicking on a share link in a PDF file or in an email, and it loads the tool and the tune directly into that embedded frame. And that's really all it takes to be able to get the tune running in the player in there. And then the rest of this just sets up, things like what happens when you click the previous and next buttons, that it knows that, like, I should go to the next item in the list or the previous item in the list, and then it effectively it fakes as though you were clicking on the next or previous item. It figures out, I'm at number 6, I'm at item number 6, so I'm going to say I want item 5, and you tell the tune selector that you've changed. That's what this dispatch event does. Is it just says, hey, I want you to essentially, it's just exactly like you had clicked the previous item. This is simulating a click on the previous or next item. In the case where this is if tune links equals greater than 1. So if there's more than one tune, it does all this thing where it sets up the list of tunes and it sets up the previous and next. But if there isn't more than one tune, it just hides the tune selector entirely, right? And it hides the previous and next buttons. And it just sets the one tune to the frame, and you're kind of done. And it's kind of a brain dead website. It has just one tune, but there may be cases where that is, that is appropriate. The other thing it does is it tries to be smart about adapting. It tries to be smart about adapting the size of that iframe. So, in other words, if there is no title or there is no subtitle, it'd be nice to not take up all that space. So there has to be some kind of code. So for example, if I generate this and I get rid of the website title and I get rid of the footer, and I'll just make the background, for now we'll just make it, let's say light green. And you'll see that in this website that the header is much, much smaller, right? It's much shorter. And so the code actually measures everything, and it adapts the size of this iframe based on what it sees. So if there's no header, no footer, it tries to do its best to kind of make things look pretty and try to get as, try to maximize the space of the tunes within whatever elements are there on the top and bottom. And that's what this get elements total height does. And it's actually used. You can see that this resize iframe gets called whenever there's a resize of the window. So for example, if we actually resize this window, you can see that it adapts to the size of the screen. But it does get called once at the very start. Again, these aren't things that, this kind of stuff you probably don't need to know in order to use it, because this is mostly about a sort of how would you describe it? Sort of accounting, bookkeeping. Because most of the things that people are going to want to change is they're going to want to change like which instruments get played, or maybe they don't want all the instruments and that sort of thing. And we'll talk about that next. But I did want to kind of show you the kind of the basic framework of the sort of housekeeping that the tool builds for you, and how it builds that list of the tunes from this website here. From this data structure here. So that's like the basic case. So this is the basic case where we have, again, a very common thing would be to have just a website, again, no instrument selector here, a header, a title, subtitle, a bunch of tunes, ability to go between them, the full screen button, that sort of thing. So before I go to the next level, which is what happens when there's actually a instrument selector, are there any questions?
Michael, I'm here and I'm sort of listening, but I'm not really, I'll have to go back and, because I missed the first part anyway, so, but I am listening, I'm here. So just so you know, you're not alone.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to generate the same website, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the instrument selector. So we'll say export full feature Tunebook. I'll just say Zoom demo with instruments. And we'll just say, here is my website. And now I'm going to click the Add Instrument, Tablature Instrument Selector dropdown. And again, I'm just going to leave the instrument, default instrument to the piano, and we'll generate this one. And I'll open it, and it'll look exactly the same, except now it has, I'm going to zoom up a little bit, except now it has the instrument dropdown on the right. And the tool built that for you. You know, there's nothing you needed to do except just say that you wanted it. And so now when we pick a tune, we can say, okay, I want Michael's, and I want it to be played on tin whistle, and it just does it. So we'll actually look at the code for this and compare it with the previous case. And it's going to look very, very similar for the most part. Again, the styling section is exactly the same. The only difference being that it will have an additional element, I believe. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't. It's exactly the same. But the only difference is now we have this new selector. And you can see that selector is fully populated with the instruments that are in that dropdown already. So if we so then here's the tunes, different set of tunes because we did the sleeve note ones. And now there's a lot more code down below. For the most part, you don't have to really, and it does very much the same thing. It has the previous next, it builds the tune list and all that. And then it has some additional code that handles the instrument changing. So for example, this is the, much like we had a change listener for the tune selector, there's a change listener now for the tablature listener. And essentially what this does is it looks at which of the values. So there's a value on, if we were to actually look in the tablature selector here, you can see there's a value 0, 1, 2, 3 through 11 for these items. And if we look in this code at the bottom, you'll see that there is a handler for each of those. It actually gets the value when the value of the tab or instrument when the drop-down value changes, this gets called. And it gets the value and it says, okay, is it a 0, 1, 2, 3, and then it sets some information to display that particular case. So for example, we know with tenor banjo, I want to use the mandolin tab. For the first two, I want to use the note names, so the notes or the note names. For whistle, I want to use whistle tablature and so on. And eventually it gets to a function called inject instrument, which takes the share link, out of this list here. So it finds the tune, takes the share link, and it actually does exactly what the tool would do, which is it will decompress that share link and get the ABC back. And then in the ABC, it knows, for example, it knows that in the original ABC, because we told it to inject a piano sound as the, so for example, we know that originally we said we wanted piano sound to be the default. It says, oh, I'm going to change the default piano sound to the mandolin or the banjo sound. So it actually gets the ABC out of the share link, uncompresses the ABC, finds where it changes the instrument, sets the instrument, and it changes it to the instrument. And that's what this code does. And it can even change things like the volume for the backup. So for example, for the whistle's a bit loud, so I wanted to make the backup a bit louder. Generally, you don't have to concern yourself too much with this code unless you're really getting into wanting to add additional instruments. Then it's fairly simple to extend this. But this is but again, the combination of the handlers for the individual items in the tablature list are here, and then eventually it calls this inject instrument, which then, like I say, gets the share link, uncompresses it, changes the ABC as required, and then turns it back into a share link, and then that's the URL that gets used to launch into the iframe. Again, so the sequence is when we change tabs, is it gets the tune, decompresses the tune back to ABC, modifies the ABC in this function here, compresses it back into a share link, and then puts the share link back into the iframe. But the reality is that unless you want to go down to that level of actually like, well, I don't want a guitar, I want to, instead of having an accordion sound, I want to have a trumpet or something, you're probably never going to get into this code. But what you may want to do is you may say, well, geez, Michael, that's nice that you provided all of these instruments, but really all I want is just I just want the notation, and I just want to have the mandolin. And all you have to do is delete those lines. That's it. And now, if I save this, and I open this, you'll see we get the same thing, but now we only have two options in the instrument. And I think this is going to be far more common as far as modification. And the reason this works is because, again, if the option isn't here, then that value will never get, the only values that will ever get passed to the change routine are the ones that are available in the list. So there may be additional code here for those other instruments, but it'll never get called. They effectively become no operations. So it's very easy to update this list to have whatever subset of the instruments you want. If for example you just want to have let's say piano and tin whistle. Okay, and we save that. And if we want this to say something different, like, have some fun, and we'll reopen that guy. We'll see now this says have some fun at the top, and we just have the two instruments available. And you don't have to get into any of that more complicated code that does, that handles the actual like creating the ABC and modifying the share links and all that. You just have to modify the markup. You don't have to actually change any of the JavaScript code. And I can imagine that would be a fairly common scenario for some people. Even though I've put in these 11 instruments, some people may not ever want, let's for example, like hammer dulcimer or something. They can just easily take it out. And so that's the most common kind of simple customization of the website that I could see someone doing. The other beauty of this is a lot of times, for example, when I update a website, so I have a website for the local occultist chapter, and I have that website sitting on my disk already. And but let's say since I've been working on the occultist website, I've been working on some other websites. And now I want to come back and I want to, I get a new set of tunes from the chapter, and they want me to stick it in the website. The only thing I have to change is this tunes list. I don't have to change anything else. I don't even have to regenerate the website. So, for example, oftentimes I'll do this, and again, this is just kind of a trick. This is a little bit esoteric, but I think it'll make sense. So, for example, imagine if I so let's say here's the tunes that are currently in this Tunebook. It's the sleeve notes ones. So I've got this website, and I like the colors, and I like what it says on the headers and footers. And if I had done anything else, if I had edited the website, if I had been working on somebody else's website or some other Tunebook, and I went to export website, all of these values would reflect whatever I was last working on. It doesn't have any concept of saving and loading the settings yet, but it would reflect the last time you used it. So oftentimes what I would do is, let's say I wanted to change that website to be something else. So I'm going to just open up some other tunes here. let's open up, I'll just pick like, here's like, 10 random tunes. And I'm going to just generate another website. It almost doesn't matter what's in it. I'm going to just export this. It almost, like, I don't even care what's on this page. All I want is I want to get those tunes encoded, okay? So here I've got these 10 tunes. Okay, let me just remind you, okay, here's the current website that's got the sleeve notes ones. And now what I'm going to do is, okay, so here's the sleeve notes. Here's the current sleeve notes demo with the Annabag and all that stuff. And I'm going to just open up that one that I just exported. And I don't care about any of this. The only thing I care about is this tunes data structure. And you can see this one starts with black-haired lass. That corresponds to what we saw here. Black-haired lass is the first tune. And I can very easily, just in my text editor, I can, most text editors, if you triple click, it'll select that entire data structure. I'll copy that. I'll go into my website I was working on. So you can imagine, like, they had sent me a new update. I can triple click here, paste in the new tunes, save it. And now when I if I refresh that website, same colors and everything else, except now I've got the tunes, the new tunes. So this is a very simple way to update an existing website, is if you know that all of the parameters around it, all of the headers, all the footers, all the colors and everything are the same. Only thing you have to replace is that tunes data structure with anything you want. If I wanted to turn this into Paul's site, I'll just grab Paul's website here. So here's Paul's. Here's this, massive tune data structure. I'll grab the whole thing, copy it, replace the one with the black-haired lass. We go over here and reload it, and now it will be all of Paul's tunes. So again, this is another level of sort of it's customization, but it's really more of a housekeeping thing for those of you who have to, if you're already maintaining a Tunebook. I do this all the time because I get updates from our Cultist chapter every couple weeks, and rather than regenerating the entire website by scratch, if I know everything else is going to be the same, I just export any website with the new tunes and keeping the default instruments the same. And I copy that tunes data structure and I just paste it in over the old one, and I save it and I push it up to my hosting service, and I'm done. So that's a really simple way to maintain a website rather than having to regenerate it from the tool. Let's see. One last thing I do want to show you before we look at a more extreme case, and is if you have a lot of tunes. So, like, for example, Paul's site is 699 tunes. So I'm going to go ahead and open his site, and just to show you that it will open, but you can see it's going to take probably, like, if you were to just open his Tunebook site. This is 699 tunes. It's going to take it, a minute probably before you even see them, because again, it's a lot of tunes. This 699 tunes is not pushing the limit for the tool, but it just takes a lot of time. So we'll wait for it. And you're like, God, this is taking forever. I don't want to have to do this every time I want to generate the website. See, it took it that long. But I mean, there's, like I say, there are 700 tunes here. So one trick I want to show you. And we could do the export website at this time. We could say, do this, and then say, okay, Paul Hardy demo. We'll make this green, and we'll make this white. So I could do that. Takes it a second to generate all those share links. And now we have the Paul Hardy site here with all of his 700 tunes. But we had to wait for that initial draw. And that's kind of, I mean, you know, if I open up 100 tunes, and again, it depends on the speed of your computer. So for example, if I open up our local cultist chapter Tunebook, it's like 110 tunes. And you can see it takes, you know, takes just a few seconds. And this is a M1 Mac. It's not the fastest computer. It's a pretty fast computer, but it's pretty representative of a modern Macintosh. 100 tunes, no big deal. You know, to do the initial draw and then do the export, no problem. But 700 tunes, 1,000 tunes, 2,000 tunes, different. So I want to show you a trick that you can do to not have to do that waiting. And there's an option. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how to essentially tell it not to draw the tunes, because we don't have to draw the tunes to be able to generate the websites. We just need the ABC, because all it does is it just takes the ABC and it turns it into a share link, and it stuffs that into that data structure that has all the tunes. It never does anything with the drawing. There was, if you notice, when we looked at the actual HTML, there was nothing in there about PDFs or SVG or JPEGs or anything. It was just a bunch of links. So the thing you want to do is, before you even try to open the file, a big file, you can go into Advanced Settings, and there's an option that says Disable ABC.js Notation Rendering. And this essentially tells the tool to not even try to draw the tunes. And now if I open up Paul's book, again, 699 tunes, it just loads instantly, and we can export the website, and we'll just say demo fast, just so you can see it's really generating it. And when we open that one, you can say same thing, but we didn't have to wait for that initial render to do it. So that's just a trick I wanted to pass along. And this is actually described in the user guide. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. If you click a question mark in any corner of any dialog in the tool, it takes you to the help. And if you look down below here, there's a section called Export Website Developer Customization. And the first item is speeding up the export website workflow by disablling rendering. And there's a little video that shows you exactly how to do what I just showed you. So that shows you how to speed up the website export for really big Tunebooks. And then the thing I showed you about deleting individual items in the dropdown is also described in the user guide. So this shows you how to go from that big list to just a couple of instruments. Again, all of this is, everything I've shown you so far is actually documented in the user guide. I do want to show you one more example, and this is more for just to show what's possible. And it does require you to be more of a JavaScript programmer than this is not a beginner function. This is not done for you automatically, but it's more to show what's possible. And what I would encourage someone to do is to actually, you know, for any of these websites that are here, so for any of the websites that are in here, you can download any of those and take a look at the code, and figure out what's going on, and use that to help you figure out if you have a specific thing you want to do, a customization that you want to do. You might be able to learn something from what I've done for my customizations. So, for example, the one that is the most complicated of all of them is the King Street Sessions Tunebook website, and this is the 1,000+ tunes. And for the most part, you can see it looks very much like the standard websites with a tune drop-down and a tablature drop-down. But it's got this additional drop-down here by style. Right, so now we have a list of polkas, and here we have a list of O'Carrollon tunes. Right, and so this kind of a thing where I've separated out the tune styles into a separate drop-down, that required some completely custom code. This is not something that the tool can do for you. And the only reason that this happened to be possible was because inside each of the tunes that are in the King Street Sessions Tunebook is he actually would put in the, he had them all grouped already in the Tunebook by style. And so it was very easy to isolate, okay, here are all the reels, here's all the jigs, here's all the Scotch reels, here's all the Strasbergs, whatever, which made it possible to then build up essentially separate collections for each of those. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second here. The problem with trying to do this on your own is that if you don't already have your tunes organized in some way where you can sort of isolate, okay, here's all of the reels, here's all the jigs, here's all the slip jigs. For example, if you can't do it by just the meter, because hornpipes and the reels often will both be in 4/4 time. So you can't say, well, I'm going to put all the 4/4 tunes together and put all the 6/8 tunes together. I mean, you could do it with 6/8 for the jigs probably, but you can't tell like from the tune style. Now, Mike Long already had done that in his tune book, so it made it very easy to say, okay, well, he had it so like the first 300 tunes were reels, and then the next 100 tunes were Scotch reels, and then came all the jigs and all the slip jigs. And what I did was to separate those into essentially as though I had done, what is this? I don't know how many styles are here, a dozen. Like I had done a dozen different websites. And then I essentially made it possible to change which of those websites gets delivered depending on which of these selectors you pick. So I'm going to just give you a quick preview of that code. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but I just want to kind of give you a sense for the sort of thinking that went into making it. And it's really not that complicated when you come right down to it. So if we look at the King Street Sessions Tunebook, again, very similar header. Here's the CSS, exactly the same as before, styling exactly the same as before. Nothing changes there, but you can see it's a little different here. Besides having the instrument selector, it's got this one additional drop-down. This is one I put in myself. It has a style selector, which means somewhere below it's going to have a handler that says, you know, when this changes, do something. And then if we look, everything else is the same. Headers and footers, tune frame, that's the iframe holder. And now what you'll see is there are multiple, and again, this is things I had to do to customize it, but we're going to have instead of one set of tunes, what you're going to see, and there's a bunch of them. These are all the reels, and then there'll be another one farther down. There's a lot of these. Let's see, let me just do a select, and we'll just get down. Okay, so that's all the reels, and then we'll go down past all the reels, and then there'll be another one. Okay, here's all the Scotch reels. So they're in their own, each of these are just like the tunes collection that would be in the normal website, but you can see that they're kind of organized. So each one of these is a collection of particular tune types. So that was all the Scotch reels. Here's all the Strasbergs. They're in one group. And then we'll just keep scrolling down, and probably we're going to find, what's the next one here? The next one will be, okay, so here's all the hornpipes. You see Alexander's hornpipe, and then if we scroll around a little bit, we'll see here's Belfast hornpipe. So all of the individual tune types have been collected into manually into these data structures for that particular tune style. And the way that I literally did that was that I opened up the King Street Sessions Tunebook source. I'll just show you what that looks like. And we have the rendering turned off, but you can see like he organized all the reels here. So what I did is for example, you know, I took all of the reels and I generated a website. You know, so for example, let's just find okay. So I'm going to get rid of all the tunes except for the reels. I'm going to just delete them all. So now all I have left in here is just the reels. So these are all the reels that were in the Tunebook. And then I did an export website, and I saved that website. And then I isolated all the Scotch reels, and I did export website. And then I isolated all of the Strathspey, export website. Each of those gave me a data structure of tunes for that particular tune style. And then I brought each of those into the King Street Sessions Tunebook website, and I gave them all their own names. So here's the ones for the songs. There's going to be another one for the O'Carillons. Here's the O'Carillons. And each of those are now individual, instead of having a single tunes data structure, there's a data structure for each style. And then the rest of it is very similar, except there's one more handler now that says when, so the style, there's a style selector now. That's the one that picks between the tune styles. It just changes whenever you pick something off of that style selector, it says which of the various data structures. So there's a data structure of tunes called reels, one called Scotch reels, Strathspey. It just says which one is the tunes. Just like we had tunes before, that was the single one. It says, okay, tunes is now Scotch reels, tunes is now hornpipes, and so on. So it allows you to switch between the different styles. Okay, so all I had to add to do his custom one was essentially this code. And again, if you're familiar with doing web coding, you can look at this and it'll be really quite clear how I was able to do it. Plus I had to save the last style additionally, because this one you're changing not only the tune, the tablature, but also which style is in the dropdown. So this is kind of an extension to it's the same pattern as the simple website with just the tune list and the styles, but it adds that additional selector. And again, when you see it in action, we just pick our style, say we want to march. That causes this drop down to get repopulated with the tunes from that section. And when so we have slip jigs, Hardeman the fiddler, and tenor banjo. And if I go back to that tune book, we'll be exactly in that same spot. So it's following the same pattern as the what's automatically generated for you, but it just adds some additional functionality by having this additional selector. And again, I would say, look through the code. If you understand the basic operation of the two drop downs, you can see how I was able to then add the third one, both in the markup and the tune database, the tunes databases for the various styles, as well as what to do when you change the value in this drop down. So that's kind of the big picture of this. Again, this is the most complicated of the customizations that I did, but it was relatively, you can see it's not a lot of code to add that functionality once you kind of understand the basic flow of how the website works. Really, the most common thing I think most people will be customizing is just the color of that question mark. Because if you have a dark color, so for example, if I'm, let me just reload here. Get back to our 3 tunes. So here's just the 3 tunes. Now, if I do an export website and let's say I pick a really dark color like red, and yeah, go ahead and I'll go ahead and I'll export this. By default, the color, oh, that's white. I need something darker. Let me think about this. Let me do like a dark blue instead of red, because we can still see it. Okay, we'll make this dark blue. How about the text color? Oh, actually, hold on a second. I'm trying to show an example where the text that's in the middle, is, there we go, where the text that's in the middle is sitting on a white background, but the stuff on the corners is sitting on a dark background. That's the case where you may want to change the color of something. So let me set that up. We'll do this dark blue to white to dark blue. Well, the text color be black, hyperlink color be black. Because the text is in the middle, and this gradient is going to go from dark blue to white to dark blue. So the text will be sitting on white, but the corners will be dark blue. And when I do that, I believe that the question mark will be black. Yeah, so the question mark gets lost. Okay, so we might say, well, gee, I want to make that more visible. So that's a case where you may want to say, okay, I want to edit the color of that one of that one item. And we know that that is the website help. And we'll change that to white. And we save it. And now if I refresh this website, you can see that question mark pops out. So that's just that's like a really simple case where, you know, if because of the colors you select, you know, but it uses the same color. It uses the same color for all of the text all the text that isn't a hyperlink, and then it uses whatever color you select for the hyperlinks for hyperlinks. So, for example, if I had wanted if I wanted that to be, you know, red, that hyperlink at the bottom to be red, when I generated the website, so if I want the hyperlink color to be red, I can make this red. You can see it's red. Oh, so that's the color it uses. I should know that myself. So the color that you set for the hyperlinks is also used for any hyperlinks you have in the header or footer, as well as for the website button. And then again, if I said, well, gee, I don't want that to be red, I want that to be white, I would then just go back and open that. It's the most recent version, and we'll just change the website help from red to white, save it, reload it, and now we're good. And we can push this up to our website and we're good to go. So anyway, that is sort of it. Again, the idea being that, you know, the website builder does, you know, 99% of the work for you most of the time. And, you know, maybe most people might have to edit just a color for that one item. You know, sometimes, you know, I might be able to add, part of the problem is this is such a big dialogue, and you get to the point where on some screens, these dialogues get to be to the point where this is about as big a dialogue as you can have for a common laptop screen. So I limit how many options are on here. I could have a separate item that says, you know, the color of the help icon, I guess. But for now, you just make that one change in the actual HTML. And for the most part, it will handle it for you. Almost all of the websites that I put out on this site are all just done automatically. I didn't have to do virtually no customization for any of these, you know. So, you know, these were ones where I just limited the instruments, for example. That's about it. If I wanted to have, for example, we have these collections of Scottish and English tunes. These were all done without any customization at all. I probably turned that one white, that's it. But, you know, most of this is just the default website builder. So again, you know, you can always you can always download any of these examples from the website and look at the code. And, you know, my suggestion is just build some and then play with them. You're not going to break anything. Oh, I do want to say one more thing, just about use of the tools. So, for example, I've had people say they want to use the website builder, but they want to use the website builder, but they want to customize the tunes. They want to modify the tunes, and so it's very important to understand that once you open a tune, you know, someone says, well, I like my I like to organize my tunes 2 measures per line instead of 4. That's fine. I mean, you can certainly do that. You would just close this, and then, you know, you'd be in the editor here, and then you could modify the tunes. I mean, that's easy to do. But the key being that this change doesn't get reflected back into the website, right? So if I were to, you know, reload this tune, it's still going to pull it from the website, whatever's on the website. It's not, it doesn't have any way of like automatically like reflecting your ABC changes back into the website. The website's being delivered from my hosting service. So the thing to do is, if you want to make changes to tunes that come out of a tune book, and I already made this, I grabbed a snapshot when I did it. You know, we've got these, we've reformatted the tunes we wanted. You can save it right here. You can say, okay, I want to save my version of Alexander's. And then if you're later on actually in the tool, if you're actually in the ABC Transcription Tools, you know, then you could open up that customized version of the tune that you just created and create your own website or your own tune book or whatever. So that's a key thing, is like, you know, anytime you edit a tune that you download, sorry, that you see from a website, by going into the editor, just know that those changes somehow don't automatically get reflected back into the website. They kind of stay, they are just a local copy that you have that you can work with and save and then stick in your own tune book if you like. The one thing that is kind of nice is, if you do have I'm going to just show you real quick here, and this will be the last demo, is if you do save a tune out of a tune book. So for example, if I have Alexander's and Alexander's plays, if you generate a PDF of this tune by clicking export audio image or PDF and say export tune as PDF, it will automatically make sure that that tune PDF has the share link on the title. So this is now a playable PDF. So that's a nice way to get, like, if you have a single tune out of a big tune book that you want to get as a PDF and maybe send it to somebody, knowing that they can still click on the title to play it. The website code takes care of that for you. You don't have to do anything except just say, hey, I want to, you know, for example, if I want a playable version of, I don't know, Captain McGuire, and I say, oh, I want to send this to somebody, you can just export tune as PDF. And that PDF will be playable. So, there's a lot of this kind of subtle stuff that, you know, may seem obvious, but if you don't specifically think about the use case, it's easy to miss. You know, I think when I first did this, I didn't, you know, you create the PDFs, but the PDFs were passive. And I thought, well, that's kind of silly. You know, how do I make it so that if you come from a website, get a tune, and then export it as a PDF, how to make sure that that PDF continues to play, and that if somebody else then creates a PDF from the PDF, that PDF continues to play, right? So like once it knows how to play, it knows how to play forever, and that's the case now. The fact that it should play when clicked on gets transferred all the way down the chain. No matter how many times you get the tune modified, export the PDF, it'll continue to play. It keeps the annotation in the tune that tells the PDF exporter that it should always play. So anyway, that's the last of the demos. I just want to, before we finish up, just want to find out if there's any other questions before wrap it up. This is being recorded, so I'm obviously going to edit out our little Zoom bomber at the beginning, and I'll make this available. This will be up on YouTube, and it'll also be in the, it'll also eventually be in the user guide. So I'll post links to that on the Facebook group for the tool, and you're welcome to review it at any time. So with that, I'm going to come out of, so anyway, but thank you all for coming. I appreciate you being here. It's been really interesting using this Tunebook website exporter to essentially take there's a lot of these collections of tunes, particularly just recently, these, for example, these 18th century English, Irish, and Scottish tune books, which have been around since the early 2000s, they're sitting on websites as PDFs and ABC files, but they're kind of nascent. They're passive. And I think by taking a lot of these collections of tunes and turning them into living documents, it's going to sort of create a very easy opportunity for taking historical collections like this and make them much more accessible for people to play with. And there's some things going on right now to take some additional collections of tunes, not just in the Irish and English genre, but from other genres, and also kind of make them living documents like this using the website generator. And the goal with the website generator was for that anybody could do this without having any kind of coding skills. And I feel pretty good about that it's accomplished that. So I'm hoping to see the kind of interesting uses that people have for this going forward. Okay, so any final questions or comments before we call it a day?
Thank you, Michael.
All right, Alex. Kathleen, do you have any questions or comments before I close the meeting? All right, hearing none. Thanks, everyone, and see you back on see you on Facebook or on one of the Zoom sessions.
Have a great weekend. Bye.
Sorry, Michael. Yes, yeah, trying to get through there. Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wondering, can you loop phrases?
Can you loop phrases? When you say loop phrases, do you mean in the tune trainer or playback or?
Yeah, like when you're playing back and you come across like a tricky phrase and you just want to
yeah, okay. Let me go ahead and stop the recording because now we're kind of just getting into more generic stuff about the tool. Hold on a second. I will show you exactly how to do that.